Hi, and welcome to Gen Z Faith Summit. My name's Courtney.
And my name is Jason.
And today we are joined by Jackie Brewton. Thanks for joining us, Jackie.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm really excited.
Great, us too. Yeah, and to give you a little more context about who Jackie is, she's a youth development speaker and a healthy choices educator. And she delivers not only keynote presentations in front of public schools, but she also is standing on the front lines speaking to classrooms of students as well. And she's the author of the book, 7 Secrets Guys Will Never Tell You, A Teen Girl's Guide to Love, Sex, and Relationships. And so we're going to go ahead and just jump right in.
Okay.
Jackie, what would you say the role of faith in parenting Gen Z is?
I think faith plays a huge role in parenting Gen Z, and especially when it comes to the topic of sex. Because when you think about it, who better to tell them about the original design of sex? And they did a study in 2013 from the National Survey of Family Growth, and they said 57% of teenage girls at the time, that was all they interviewed were girls, had not started having sex. And over half of them said the reason was because of their faith and moral standards.
Wow. Okay. So would you say is one of the big things about, one of the biggest lies that we are being told about sex is that it's just a religious reason that we abstain from it?
I think that's what a lot of people think that kids are being told. But let me tell you what the biggest lie that I think kids are being told about sex is that it's a part of a relationship, that it's a requirement, that they have to have it. And you know what? It's not just girls. Boys believe that lie as well. Because when you think about everything that's out there in the culture, everything that they see in the media is sex is just a part of the relationship and it's just a requirement. So you have girls who say, I was afraid if I didn't have sex with my boyfriend, I might lose a boyfriend that I really like. And so they don't necessarily want to have sex, but they think I have to have sex because if I don't, I will lose them. But let me tell you what I say to those girls. You're right. You might lose a boyfriend that you really like, but you will never lose a boyfriend who really likes you.
Wow.
But let me give you the flip side of that for boys is that boys don't think they have a choice because you think about everything in society makes it believe that, that's what makes them a man. So high school boys tell me that they are afraid that if they don't ask their girlfriend for sex, she's going to think one of 3 things. She thinks they're gay. She'll think they're cheating, or she thinks that he doesn't find her attractive. So let me tell you the typical scenario that I see playing out with high school couples. A boy is asking for sex because he doesn't think he has a choice, but he's hoping that she says no. Because 17 Magazine did a survey a few years ago, and they said 56% of teenage boys said that they were relieved when the girl said no to sex.
Wow.
Now, some of those boys asked for sex, I guarantee you. They were just hoping that she said no. But then you have a girl who doesn't understand, and she believes that what he asked for, he really wanted. So she says yes to the question that he was hoping she said no to.
Wow.
He's asking for sex because he's afraid if I don't, she's going to think I'm gay. She thinks I'm cheating, or she thinks I don't find her attractive. She doesn't really want to have sex, but she's afraid if she tells him no, that he'll break up with her. So you have a teenage couple who is making a choice that neither one of them wanted to do because they just thought it was part of
huge.
What they were supposed to do. It is huge.
So are you saying it's almost like there's these unspoken pressures and beliefs that teens are hearing that's causing them to make these decisions? Like, where are these messages coming from, would you say?
Absolutely. It comes from the media. It comes from their peers. And so they just think that, you know what, that's what you do. And also I think a lot for girls, sometimes they think this is what they have to do to get them to like them. So I had an 8th grade girl who said, if we can't have sex with our boyfriends, what can we do to make them like us?
Wow.
I know, it broke my heart. I was like, what do you mean? What can you do to make them like you? I said, you're the prize. Like they should be glad that you're dating them, but it's all about what can I do to make them like me? But you think about this huge fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And so they're afraid of being rejected.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that's kind of the driving fear behind all of these choices that are being made, is just the fear of being rejected.
Oh, I heard a speaker say once, and I shared this in the classroom, and the students will agree. He said, the biggest fear in life isn't death. The biggest fear in life is rejection.
Mm.
And he said, most people are more afraid of being rejected than they are of dying. And he said, so only about 20% of the decisions that most people make are based on who they are. The other 80% are based on who they think they have to be in order to be accepted.
Mm.
So we have a whole society of people, and it's not just teenagers either. We have a whole society of people not being authentic because we're making decisions because we think that's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonates with the kids in the classroom. I mean, I see the heads shaking when they're like, you're right. You're right.
So what would you say is the message that students need to be hearing in order to kind of combat that lie, especially from their parents?
One of the things they need to be hearing from their parents is that sex is not a requirement. But let me tell you what parents often do is parents spend a lot of time sometimes talking to kids about what to avoid. Stay away from, they only want sex. Instead of saying, this is what you should be aspiring to. So in the classroom, I like to say, I teach towards something and not away from something. And so parents need to give hope and not fear. And sometimes I think and I understand parents are trying to keep their kids from, making some mistakes that, could alter and derail the rest of their life. But I heard a father say once when I asked him, how do you guide your daughter into making the right choices when it comes to sex? And he said, I teach her what real love looks like. So he said, when the way they teach bank tellers on how to recognize counterfeit money is they make them study real. And so if parents could teach their kids what real love is, then they can get them to say, don't try to avoid this kind of person, but you need to look for this kind of person. Because there are people out there who will wait. And girls are sometimes much more aggressive than guys are today. So, we need to teach guys that they're, about refusal skills as well, and teach guys that there are girls out there who will wait. Because what I'm hearing a lot is guys are saying, where are the girls that, will wait because I'm being pressured or I got broken up with because I didn't want to have sex. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. And Jackie, I love that message of like staying away from that scaremongering of like, don't do it, you'll get pregnant, or all of these consequences, but rather showing what's good and like what is positive about sex. So where would parents start that conversation? Because I feel like so often it's an awkward topic. Parents would rather not talk about it or have someone else talk about it. So what are some good steps of how to display that more positive message?
Well, first, I think we need to start before we have the sex conversation. And I think it can start really young and be age appropriate and talk about healthy relationships. And it can also start with using the media. And, we always talk about the media being such a bad thing and there's so much negative, toxic, things in the media. But you can take something that's bad and have a conversation about it and say, let's talk about what just happened, on that show. And what would have been a better way? Or do you think this person thought they had to have sex? Or do you think this person feels like in a relationship this has to happen? So I think it needs to start at a young age. And it starts with the media. Number one is probably the perfect place. But it also has to be a conversation that happens throughout their life and not just with sex. And we always talk about the talk, but that's kind of a misnomer. Like there is no one talk, the big talk, because it needs to be a conversation that happens, constantly.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're talking about using media especially. Are you suggesting that parents kind of watch movies and TV with their kids and then just kind of talk about what they're watching? Or is there another practical way of using media to combat, to talk about sex?
Well, and in no way am I suggesting that you go out and search for negative media so that soon as you can make a point through the negative media. But unfortunately, commercials give you those opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many commercials, show sex as we're using sex to sell and sex is such a positive thing. So I think it doesn't have to be that you go out and seek it, but I also think that we need to guard the media that our kids watch as well. And because I will tell you, when I go into 8th grade classes, and these are 14-year-old girls, one of the questions I will ask is, how many of you have seen an R-rated movie with sex scenes in it? And without fail, it's usually about 80% of the class.
Yeah.
And so if they're watching this at 14, once they get into relationships, that's what they believe is supposed to happen because, of what they saw. So number one is guarding what they watch as well.
Would you say that is the role that parents play, like while we're living in this culture? Because you're completely right. The reality is we don't really have to seek it out anymore, but that doesn't need to be something that frightens parents or, I don't know, needs us to put up our guard. So like, what is the role of parents as they're trying to, disciple their teens in this culture? Would you say it is to guard and protect, or what does that look like?
I think it is to guard and protect, but I also think it is to role model what a healthy relationship looks like. And I think it's to provide the positives. Like I said, we always have to show the positives and trying to stay away from the negative so much. I say all the time that we've tried to change teenagers' behavior for years using 2 words, do and get. And so we talk about consequences and we say, if you do this, you will get that. And that might change their behavior short term. But I think 2 better words to change their behavior long term are see and feel. Like, how do you see yourself? How do you feel about yourself? And so I think kids who, I like to say, have a bigger yes, it's easy for them to say no to other things that may keep them from reaching their yes. So one of the roles is for parents to help them to set dreams and, set goals and have dreams and find something that they will say, I want this thing so badly that I'm not going to let anybody or anything keep me from getting it. Wow. And that covers more than just sex. That's drugs, that's alcohol, that's any other at-risk behaviors that could keep them from reaching their yes.
Jackie, I love that. I think that's brilliant. So the question then becomes, what do we do for our teenagers or students who have already made bad decisions when it comes to love or relationships?
I think one of the biggest things that parents can do when they find out that their kids have made a poor choice in this area is to be very compassionate and let them know that they are being loved unconditionally. Doesn't mean that they're not disappointed, but that they are, very compassionate. And I'll share with you a story that just happened recently. Is a young lady came to me and said that when her mom found out she was having sex for the first time, the mother got really, really angry, said some very hurtful things to her, and really hurt the young lady. So the girl is coming to me after class and now has made even more poor choices and is afraid that she might have a sexually transmitted disease. And she wants to go tell her mom, but she says, if my mother called me those names and said those things about me and was that disappointed with me after one sexual partner, I can only imagine how she will feel if I go back and tell her that I did not stop having sex and I've had another sexual partner. And so now here this daughter is who really, really, really needs her mother right now because she feels like from a health standpoint, I could be, at risk, I could have an STD, but because of how the mother reacted after the first conversation, she's hesitant to have the next conversation. So for parents, I would say, when you find out, be very compassionate and let them know that your love for them did not change, because you always want the door to be open for them to come back to you the next time they need to talk to you. And it might not even be the same thing. It might be a different poor choice that they made that you want them to be able to come back to you and talk to you about.
So would you have advice for parents who may have given bad advice or may have not reacted in a loving and compassionate way before?
Oh, I think you can always go back as a parent and have a conversation with your child about, do you remember when this happened? and I reacted, and I might have reacted because I was, disappointed. And I think it's always a good thing for parents to apologize.
Mm.
And I think that goes a long way to say, you know what, I'm sorry that I reacted that way. And, sometimes I think kids are very understanding once they hear the parent side.
Yeah.
And they know that the parent is coming from a place of love. And the parent is saying, what I really want for you is I'm more disappointed for you than I am in you.
Oh, wow.
And I think that is so huge, that the kid can know they just want more from me. Because, isn't that how God does us? It's God is more disappointed for us than he is in us. Whenever we make poor choices and we don't, live our lives according to his plan, he's not angry. He's not upset. And I think we just need to model the way, we would want God to treat us.
Wow. Yeah. And like you were talking about, one of the most important things for parents is to display and model what a healthy relationship looks like. And that's exactly what they would be doing in this. Like, even if they messed up, like, it's never too late.
Right.
Like, apologizing, conflict management, that is a part of what a healthy relationship looks like. And
Absolutely.
then loving them to see, like, for who they are. And I just want to hit on a point that you made earlier. You talked about the do and get versus feel and see. So in what ways should students be feeling about themselves and seeing themselves, and how can parents start to speak that over their children?
They need to see that they have a future, and they need to know that that future is worth them protecting. Mm-hmm. Because so many girls will say, I'm not a virgin anymore. And so I didn't really think it was any big deal to continue having sex because I've already lost my virginity. Mm. And, guys have actually come up and said those same things to me as well. And I say, you have a lot to protect. You're protecting your future. What you did does not define you. That is what you did. It is not who you are. Mm. And so I think parents can also have those kind of conversations with them about, you can't go back and undo your past, but you can always make better choices in the future.
Wow. So one of the books that you've written, or the book that you have written, is 7 Secrets a Guy Will Never Tell You, a teen girl's guide to love, sex, and relationships. Maybe what's 1 or 2 secrets, if you don't mind revealing some of those, that parents might be surprised to hear?
Well, the secret that is the last secret in the book, and I put it last for a reason, is because to me, it's kind of how I teach. It is, they will wait if you will. Mm. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the interview, that a lot of girls think that there are no guys out there that will wait. Mm. And so in this chapter, I talk about the reasons why girls think guys won't wait. I talk about the reasons why girls don't want to wait, and then the benefits of waiting, because it goes back to letting them know that there are guys out there will wait, and you don't have to feel obligated to have sex. I tell girls all the time, and I tell guys as well, a lot of teenagers give up one relationship too soon, and they don't realize that maybe the next person they dated would have been the one that would have waited. But they give up one relationship too soon because they don't think they have a choice.
Yeah, I hate that idea, but it's so true that students and teens feel like they don't have the choice, that they don't have almost like agency over their decisions, but rather allow their choices to be dictated by what we hear in culture, in media, rather than like the people that love us or God or like Christianity, how that affects our choices. And I was actually curious, since you wrote it for like a teen girl, is there different ways to approach these healthy relationship talks or even sex talks with a son versus a daughter?
You know what I think of, historically, we've had 2 different conversations, and I don't necessarily think like that's the right thing. For 2 reasons. One, think about in society, boys are encouraged sometimes to have sex, and girls are, encouraged to wait. or even if they're not encouraged, it's typically more acceptable for guys.
Mm-hmm.
And girls are like, you need to know your value. Boys have value too. Like, we always have conversations with girls about, you don't need to have sex because you need to know your value, but boys have value too. The other thing is that we have often taught refusal skills to girls, where we have said things like, if he says, if you love me, you'll wait, you need to say, if you love me, you wouldn't ask me. We have to teach those same refusal skills to guys. Mm-hmm. So you think about when the guys say, I was afraid if I didn't ask, they have just as much pressure to have sex as girls do. So oftentimes we've had different conversations with sons versus daughters. And I think we need to start having some of the same conversations about knowing your value, and about this is how you can deal with someone who is pressuring you to have sex, because guys get pressured into being sexually active just as much as girls do today.
I think that's right. And so we've talked a little bit about, the need to wait, but also the need for purity. What is the difference between, like, how does patience and purity play into this? And what exactly is purity to you? How do we give teenagers a good definition of purity?
Well, sometimes girls will, I'm always cognizant when I'm in the classroom that there are girls in the classroom who are not virgins. Mm-hmm. And so we have often equated purity with being a virgin. Mm-hmm. And that can be problematic when you have the girl sitting there who's not, that she feels like this message doesn't apply to me. Mm-hmm. Because I've already, lost my virginity. But also they need to understand that purity goes beyond just having sex. And that's huge in our culture today too, when you think about guarding your ears and your eyes, your ear gates and your eye gates, and what you feed yourself. Mm-hmm. So we talk about, pornography is a huge issue with teenagers today, and that's also an issue for girls and boys. And there, other choices they want to do. I want to do everything but intercourse so that I can still be a virgin. But there are other at-risk behaviors that they're participating in that, goes to, does that really equate, purity? Does that really equate to purity? Yeah. But like I said, I try not to make the girls who are not virgins, feel less than because they feel that they're not pure. And I also say, you can always make better choices because you still have value. I use this thing with the $20 bill where I hold it up in class and say, how much is this worth? They'll say $20. I'll ball it up and say, how much is it worth now? They'll say $20. I'll drop it on the floor. How much is it worth now? And they say $20. I said, the point is the value never changed. Regardless of what happened to this $20 bill, the value was still there. So it doesn't matter what your choices have been in the past, you still have value. That does not determine your value.
It seems like a common theme of constantly, like, just what you're going back to. So like this sex talk or talks, it all goes back to like how teens are viewing themselves. And like from that, their actions are flowing. Would you say that's correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When teenagers say, I wanted to show someone how much I love them, and that's why I had sex with them, my question back to every teenager, whether it's a male or a female, is, but what are you going to do to show yourself how much you love you? Mm. I say, because when you love you, you protect you. Mm. When you love you, you don't make decisions that could ruin your health and jeopardize your chance of reaching your dreams or goals. I say, so forget about trying to show the other person how you feel about them until you show yourself how you feel about yourself. Mm. Because it all boils down to, how do you see you? The value that you have, and make your decisions based on who you are and not based on who you're with.
Yeah. And as a parent, like, parents are in that role to be able to speak that value into their teens, and kind of going back to the word, even purity, like remembering that our words have a lot of weight. And the current understanding of purity, I feel like pretty much like the majority of people, it's that dichotomy of, so if I didn't wait and I'm not a virgin anymore, then I'm impure. Because right. That is what purity looks like. And then that is a statement about who I am as a person. And parents have that unique role to be able to say, like, redefine those words and show them that it's more and it's bigger than just this one concentrated event.
Right. Absolutely. I also think that a lot of times when we talk about purity, what happens is we almost make it seem like sex is bad.
Mm.
And so when you tell teens that sex is bad, it's like, will they think it's bad even when they get married?
Yeah.
And so I always say, I like using word pictures. It worked for, Jesus in the Bible. He taught with pictures. And so I like to give pictures. So, and I think parents can also start to use visuals and pictures because I think it's just easier for kids to grasp things. So one of the things that I do is I talk about the fact that sex is not bad. And I say it's no different than fire. If you put fire in a fireplace, it's a wonderful thing. Warm, romantic, soothing. Everybody likes a nice fire in a fireplace. But if you put that same fire out in a forest, it's very damaging and it's very destructive. But the problem wasn't the fire. It was where it was. And so I think as parents are talking to their kids about sex and even about their choices, it's not to make sex as, something that is bad, but talk about it, that it's just that when it happens, it can, be more detrimental than it should have been.
Wow. I love that your whole approach to this, especially the illustration with the $20 bill, because we recognize the value of that dollar bill by whose face is on it. And so, we also recognize our own value by whose image is on us. And so I just love that, that emphasis there. So if you were to give just one final piece of advice to parents, what would it be?
I would say that parents should, this whole thing of self-control and boundaries. Like studies have shown that self-control is a better predictor of success than IQ. And if you think about self-control is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And so parents can help their kids develop self-control and set boundaries by the boundaries that they set for them as young as when they're toddlers. Because you think about it, you want to be able to say no to your kids now so that when they get older, they can say no to themselves. And so what area is more difficult than to have self-control in than your hormones? Like there is no other at-risk behavior that we try to talk teenagers out of. Is there anything in their body that naturally makes them want to do it other than sex? There's nothing natural in their body that makes them want to do drugs or drink alcohol. And so if they can have self-control when it comes to their hormones, their finances will be a piece of cake later on. I mean, think about it. Everything else will be a piece of cake. And if they can have self-control when they're teenagers and dating, they're going to need that same self-control even when they get married when it comes to their hormones.
Yeah, that's great. And if parents would want to dive deeper into this topic, what are some resources that you can point them to, maybe your book or even outside, that would help them just disciple their teens better in this?
Well, of course, on my website, I have a weekly blog where I talk about, a lot of the strategies that I use in the classroom with students, and just a lot of, they can learn a lot about what teenagers are going through. But I also have a free ebook on my website. It's called 7 Things Every Parent of a Teen Needs to Know Before Having the Talk.
That's awesome.
And there's also a DVD that I released about 2-3 years ago, and it's called The Sex Talk Every Parent Needs to Have. So those are some resources. I have other resources for teens that parents can also use as a conversation starter. Because all the resources that I create for teens is really for parents to be able to use those teens as a conversation, those resources as a conversation starter, and not just to send their kids off to read the book, to watch a DVD, but everything is to put parents back in the place of them being the main educator of their kids in this area.
That's so important. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today, Jackie. This has been great. Learned a lot.
It's very encouraging. So we appreciate all the wisdom that you've actually just been pouring out here.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was great being here. Thank you so much.